Hey, everybody, Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast. And as per usual, I'm going to be kicking the ball over to this week. It's going to be the whole trio, John, Randall, and I. We're talking all sorts of Zelda stuff, mostly Tears of the Kingdom, or pretty much all Tears of the Kingdom. This is pretty much a direct follow-up from our last proper episode from last week. Pretty much as soon as we ended, the recording of the proper episode, we kind of dig into some of the stuff that we dipped our toes into, like Randall mentioned that he had yet to find the paraglider, so we kind of get into a little bit of that. John mentions the Addison puzzles, and we just get into, I guess, a few more kind of specifics, another like 20-30 minutes of Tears of the Kingdom chat, but also as per usual, I know kind of up until the last few recent weeks, and I can't believe this is the 50th edition of a Save It for the Cast episode, but I know some of the recent Save It for the Cast, up until maybe the last 2 or 3, I was kind of like scraping at like, I don't know what I've been playing lately, but as of late, I've been doing a ton of streams, kind of trying to get back into the swing of things, doing some Patreon polls, playing a bunch of Kingdom, playing a bunch of, via the Patreon polls, we played some Yoku's Island Express. I've been actually kind of going back to some of the stuff from like the very early days of the podcast, not so much on streams every time, because I've been playing some Wizard of Legend, which we talked about in like the very, very early days, and it's still, all these games are just as good as I remembered, which is awesome, but I did want to give a shout out on this episode to some of the upcoming games that I've been playing some demos for with the Steam. I think there was a recent Steam Next Fest, and then right after that, like a Steam Summer Sale. So during and right after all that stuff, a lot of times there's all these new demos and whatnot. And there's been a few demos that have been really on my radar, and one that just released, the one that I'll just dig into first here, is called Fallen Leaf. And this is a game that's been on my radar probably, it feels like, pretty much since I very first started like all of our, social media accounts or whatever. But I feel like I've been following this game for the longest time. It's kind of, all these games actually that I'm going to mention here are kind of like 8-bit, maybe a little bit leaning towards 16-bit in the sense, but I feel like they're more like of that Shovel Knight vein where they're like 8-bit, but full-blown widescreen. And I hate to always use that comparison just because that's like kind of the most popular like modern retro game that comes to mind. But Fallen Leaf right away, it actually reminds me a lot of this game Totally Rad that my cousin Brandon had growing up. But just something about like the size of the characters and like all the different abilities you get. And like at very first, like the first stage of the demo, you play as this character Leaf, and you just kind of, again, it's kind of like Mega Man style run and gun. Although the first stage, you just have this little like dinky karate chop. But after you kind of get through that tutorial section and whatever, and a couple little story beats, you get this like arm gauntlet that then allows you to like kind of have a little bit more of a projectile. And actually, as I was playing the demo, I was even saying like, oh, there's a little bit of a delay on this attack, not even as a complaint, but just kind of like there's a little bit, you got to get used to like, there's a little bit of lag. You got to make sure you're like anticipating your attacks and whatnot. And like right away on their social media account, they're like, hey, we heard your feedback right away. And this is like within 2-3 days after the demo coming out. And they're like, we added like, we quickened Leaf's attack by like 2 frames or so. I forget what it was exactly, but they made like a full-blown trailer for it. It's awesome. So number one, awesome that like they're immediately seeing some feedback, which again, I didn't really see as like an issue per se. I just thought it was like, okay, like I'm sure it'll feel nice with the improved or the quickened speed or whatever to that attack. But you end up unlocking a second playable character. It looks like with the trailers and stuff, there's going to be a ton of playable characters, but you get a bunch of different secondary abilities to switch through. I really, really was impressed. The demo is actually a pretty good size, too. I think there was like 7 or 8 stages, a couple boss battles that were all really fun, and it was actually that perfect balance for me, at least. Even I actually recently did a stream of some Shovel Knight, the very original Shovel Knight, none of the DLCs that they made after the secondary campaigns, just the original Shovel of Hope campaign, or I think it was just called Shovel Knight originally, but that game was kind of kicking my ass a little bit, and actually the next game I'm going to talk about was kicking my ass too, but Fallen Leaf just kind of hit that sweet spot of like, oh, it's got that retro, like it's got a really nice Super Mario Brothers 3-esque, overworld map with some really great, just all the attention to detail in this game is top notch. Like I said, it's a game that I've been following for a long time, and everything that I was looking forward to about it hit on every single one of those points. So that was just really, really awesome. And then another game that I've been looking forward to for a long time that I didn't realize there was a demo up for, and this is that game that was kicking my ass that I was just mentioning, was a game called Gravity Circuit. And this is just an amazing, also kind of like Mega Man inspired, but the combat's a little bit more melee focused. You're kind of more, I guess like hack and slash. It almost feels like more like not beat 'em up style, but kind of like Smash Brothers style combat where like up and attack is one attack, or not pressing a direction, pressing down in a direction. Then you have like a couple like secondary abilities that you can like fill up a meter and do like kind of like a dash charge, or if you can get all these extra chips. So I think you can customize that to a pretty extreme degree. I didn't really mess with that too much in the demo, but you also have like, you have a run button, which is takes a little getting used to. There's definitely a little bit more complex controls than like a Mega Man game or something like that, where it's just running and shooting, because you also have a grappling hook as well. So the run button is on one shoulder button or one trigger, and then the other, the grappling hook is on the opposite. And a lot of times I didn't mess if you could customize the controls or not, because I was like, I'll get used to it enough. It's a demo. But I was really having fun once I got the hang of it, because that grappling hook you can use almost as like a melee attack as well, or from a little bit of a range. And then if you're able to, like, once you kill an enemy or defeat them, they call it stunning an enemy, and they kind of become like monochrome, black and white, or grayed out. And then you can actually grab them, I think only with the grappling hook. Maybe you can grab them right up, like just press a button and pick them up like right next to them, but I don't think so. I think you have to grapple them, but then you can hold it down, carry the enemy or whatever it is. Sometimes there's just like little obstacles or barrels or whatever on the stage. But then you can grab that and then throw it at enemies, and it gets pretty frantic. But once you start getting the hang of it, like actually like enemies that are throwing things at you, you can catch those with the grappling hook, and you kind of have just octo-directional aim with the grappling hook, or at least you can do, up, or, up and diagonal, or straight to the right. I don't know if you can do down and diagonal and whatnot, but essentially it's like an octo directional and a little more. It's not so much physicsy. I mean, there's definitely a physics element to the grappling hook gameplay, but it's not as physicsy as something as like Rusted Moss, or that's like, it's not so much a bungee cord. It's more like just a straight up grappling hook, more like Grapple Dog, I guess. So there's definitely still some physics going on, and it, like I said, it mostly, the stage itself was definitely tough and tricky, but that was really satisfying to rip through. And the boss battle at the end was a ton of fun. There was actually a second stage that I didn't even get to, although it looked like you could actually just select it from the main menu, and possibly because they knew that this boss battle at the end of the first stage was so tough. It's like this lightning, again, very much like a Mega Man boss, like in a tiny arena, and there's like these lightning pads that like the boss keeps attacking. So like you can't be standing on the ground for too long, because you're going to get zapped or just attacked by the enemy. You're just dodging constantly. And that's probably my main problem, is I just tend to like kind of go in and just try to hack and slash, like, oh, I almost got it, like I'll get it next time, and just I don't have the patience to just keep going for it, especially when it's a demo and I'm knowing like, okay, I'm really into this. I think this game comes out in like a couple weeks. I think I could just probably wait for the actual game to come out. So yeah, I was really, really impressed with that Gravity Circuit demo. And then one more demo that really impressed me as well, that I played on a different stream the previous day or earlier in the week or something, was a game called Knights of the Road. And I keep getting it mixed up with Knights of the Round, but it's really nothing like Knights of the Round. Knights of the Round being a Capcom beat 'em up back in the day, if memory serves anyways. But this is more of again, an 8-bit kind of NES style side-scrolling platformer, where your main mechanic is this shield that you have that you can either use to block projectiles that you can use to deflect into different boxes to like break open another path. Seems like it's going to be kind of a Metroidvania situation. It seemed like at least this stage that I played on the demo was kind of stitched together, and you're doing a little bit of backtracking and some secret paths and whatnot. But then you can also throw your shield, but that requires like your magic or mana or whatever they call it in the game, your blue your blue meter. But basically, yeah, you can throw your shield at enemies, but only a limited amount of times. But then you can also kind of essentially like shield surf, if you will, where you can essentially, and you have a double jump, so you can actually jump, or again, double jump, and then hold your shield button down, which will then like kind of, instead of throwing the shield, you'll kind of like hold it underneath your feet, and then you can either like use that to jump across like a spike pit. So you can just keep jumping and then holding down the shield button. It takes a little bit of getting used to, because you got to make sure you're still holding down the shield button when you jump, so that you don't get, stabbed by the spikes or whatever you're standing on before you leave the ground or whatever. So it takes a little getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, it actually has you like, there'll be enemies that'll be like shooting some projectiles that you can take a shortcut by like bouncing off their projectiles and skipping a whole little chunk of the level, or whatnot, and bouncing off of an enemy, or even like a treasure chest. That's actually how you open the treasure chest as well, just by and it's kind of like the Scrooge McDuck mechanic, except you have to actually like, to get the bounce, you have to actually land on something like a projectile or a treasure chest, or I think an enemy's head. I'm not sure, maybe certain types of enemies, but I just was really, really impressed with the like puzzle platforming level design. The boss battle at the end was really fun. This one kind of more in the Fallen Leaf vein. It felt, although the platforming definitely did get pretty challenging and tricky at times, but I just found that like the retro, it's hitting that retro sweet spot of like, it's not totally, it's definitely making me try more than one time, but it's not making me come back again and again and again and beat my head against the wall, which I was doing a little bit of, admittedly, in that Gravity Circuit first boss battle. But yeah, I was just really, really blown away by all three of these demos. They were three that I had, had caught my eye on social media posts over the, last couple of years, some more recently than others, but especially, Fallen Leaf, I just cannot recommend that demo enough. It looks like they're going to be leaving it up for the foreseeable future, and I'm kind of curious to check out the update with the like kind of quicker attack and whatnot. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there and keep my rambling sort of short and sweet, and kick it over to John, Randall, and I for a little more Tears of the Kingdom talk, which inevitably, I mean, John and Randall have put in like hundreds more hours at this point, or I guess I should say Randall. So we'll definitely be talking about that game more and more in the future, and I'll try to bite my tongue a little bit more on my complaints, because I know I haven't really been playing a whole lot more since we talked about it last here. But yeah, I'm going to kick it over to John, Randall, and I here at the risk of rambling too much. And until next week, we will catch y'all then, and take care.
Link's paraglider is an essential tool in Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but it's actually pretty easy to miss if you decide to.
I definitely did feel like I was going in a different direction at first, and I was like, how do they not give you this paraglider right off the bat? And I might have even looked it up online, like, how do you get the paraglider? But I thought it was just like a pretty main quest, like one of the first things that like either Pura or Impa tells you to do.
Pretty easy to miss if you decide to start running around Hyrule as soon as you finish the tutorial section. If you somehow manage to get several hours into the game without picking up the paraglider. Oh.
So it's a common issue.
I was just fucking around, man. I'm just running towards shit.
Too enticed by everything else going on, man.
Yeah.
That was definitely me at first, and I was like, okay, I gotta just start, like, I was getting so overwhelmed by the map, like, even just having the 2 tiers, and then John, like, sent a screenshot or a picture of his TV or whatever, and then it showed, like, that 3rd layer for, like, the chasms. I was like, there's 3 layers to this map? I was like, oh my god, I was overwhelmed with 2! So I was starting to panic a little bit. I was like, this game is just not for me, man.
It's very big. It's very big.
It's so
I'll tell you
massive.
though, like it was similarly, yeah, like the crafting part, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Like, I like that I can do this, but similarly, I'm not like, I was never super, like, I can totally respect what Minecraft is or what Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts is, but like those weren't necessarily my main games. Like the craft, like I love crafting elements in games, but I do typically like them to be more streamlined. But then in here, once I got used to, I'd have to hold the R button, and then, that's shifting it around on the axis. And I figure out how to do that kind of faster than I did before, and how you're fusing together things and how that can be done relatively fast. And like, basically just figuring out how I can streamline my interaction with those things, as I've got more and more used to it. And that just became, woven into the fabric of my experience. I'm like, oh, okay. Now that's just another gameplay element. It's still not necessarily the main one that draws me, but I can see how that, adds a different wrinkle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like even where I was kind of getting at too with like that kind of like improv idea, like I almost feel like like the way when you like build stuff together and there's just like that green like goop that stitches it together, they're just like, it looks good enough.
I love how
job
jank
done.
That is.
Like it doesn't really like, because I'd be like attaching stuff thinking like oh, it's gonna snap. Like it's close enough, it's gonna snap on like a 90-degree angle, and then it's like, nope, it's just gonna snap on this fucking weird ass, like, what the fuck? How did that attach? Just like, oh my god, this game.
Oh, that's why I love the Addison like things, like, cause so for the like first 4 Addison things, I didn't even realize it was a puzzle.
Just like he's like some quirky character.
Yeah,
like,
I would just like constantly go up to him and then say, try letting go.
Let it go.
And then it would just fall over. And I was like, oh, this rules. I love this. Like, what a great thing. And then, like, the fifth one I came up to, I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing?
Torturing this poor guy.
Yeah. And then like, I finally put some, like a weird, like the first couple ones that you come across are pretty simple, and then they just get so bizarre so quick. Like he'll be on a slant, or like the like supports that are that you have to connect to are like in just a weird way, and it's for me it's fun problem solving. Like it's just a simple little thing that like is a little bit better than like the old Korok puzzles, because like that's the other thing I like found a lot of the Korok puzzles in like the first one to be tedious, where it's like, all right,
I agree
like,
with that 100%.
let's just do the same thing tedious. Over and over again. And like
I see what I need to do, I just need to do it.
Yeah,
circle
but like
of rocks.
I mean, that's all of games is seeing that you need to do something. Is like, oh, I just need to like hit these jumps and then I'll get over. Is like, that's why like precision platforming like isn't interesting to me. Where it's like, I get it. Like, this isn't fun for me. This doesn't trigger the
solution,
like,
and you have to do it perfectly.
Yeah, right. It's
like
the
dance steps.
Right. So, but like that's every game is like just the process of reaching the solution or the like success state in a way that is exciting to you. And if it isn't, it isn't. Like that's just that's genres a great point,
actually. But the fact, even though I'm not enjoying it in Tears of the Kingdom, it is mind blowing how open it. Like it's more the fact that it's like doubled down on the open endedness of Breath of the Wild is crazy.
Yeah,
like because that game already felt it felt like it changed games a little bit with Breath of the Wild, like to a degree. Obviously, it was borrowing from a lot of other games, but like it really kind of took it to the next level. And then this game just said, "Oh, you thought that was something? Like we're gonna double down on that." So
that's why I really hope that Ascend is the new is the thing that gets taken away from it, because like the thing that I think Tears of the Kingdom does hand over fist better than Breath of the Wild is traversal. And it is making movement in 3D space and manipulating objects in 3D space so much easier than in literally any other game.
That's interesting, because I felt the opposite. Like I felt like I've liked moving or traversing in Breath of the Wild more.
See, like I think that,
but I do like the Ascend ability. I'm not going to argue that.
I think that Breath of the Wild like is good, and it like with the paraglider it added a lot of things where it's like, hey, like this is a fantasy game, we don't need to have like certain things and certain restrictions, and then like that just like we accept because like, oh, it's not realistic, or oh, it's not the convention of that. And like I think that like it will be difficult for a different game to do the same stuff. Like it's like when we were playing Half-Life Alyx, and like like certain things like felt really cool and really natural like with that, and that, but at the same time it would be like, okay, but I still have to point at an area and then teleport to the next area. Like it's not perfect. Whereas like a lot of, especially like when I was doing the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, and like so much of just like, oh, I want to go to this area, and like being given so many tools to do that at so many different speeds. Like, now, yes, you can
dungeons. What do you mean by dungeons?
Like literal temples, right? like divine beast scale. Okay, and also like, I mean, the thing about shrines is that shrines are basically tutorials, and it's the same thing that like Breath of the Wild was as well. Like every shrine was just a mechanic, and only that mechanic in a vacuum,
and also a fast travel spot amongst the map, right? You know, otherwise,
right? Yeah. So like that's the thing is like every time that I'm in a shrine, I'm like, okay, this has a set solution. I should just figure out that set solution. Like there's no like, yes, I can brute force it, but it is so much more difficult to brute force a shrine than to puzzle it out. And every shrine, I think, is more like a Baba Is You level, where it's like you are given a lot of tools, and a lot of tools that are abstract and may not make sense to you. And if you don't get it, you should step away from it instead of trying to brute force it.
That's
because like the thing about like Tears of the Kingdom is that it gives you a lot of tools, but those shrines are specifically like there is a solution and you should find the solution. Whereas the overworld is you are given tools and you can do whatever the fuck you want.
See, that's interesting. I felt the opposite. I kind of felt like in the overworld, I felt like I had to do very specific things, even if I could do them a little more open-ended. But in the shrines, I felt like I always did it like, this is not the way I'm supposed to do this, but okay, this works.
Yeah, I think the better way to do the shrines is to try to find the actual solution.
Well, I mean, I just did it in whatever way like first popped into my head. Like, yeah, I think this will work, and like that just seemed like the most intuitive way. But again, I think it was just because I was maybe trying to avoid. I was just like, this will work.
And I think you can do that. But like in the way that Baba is you can do other things that aren't the intended.
Yeah, you can do weird solutions.
The experimentation is fun though. I mean, I think that part of it is fun that way.
It is fun. I guess like again, for me just the controls are so tedious that like the getting to the experimenting is so tedious that I couldn't get to that fun level with it, even though like because I took a bunch of clips while I was playing on the Switch, like the 30-second saves, and like I watch back and go, oh, that was kind of cool. Oh, that was kind of cool. But like, then I think I'm like, but I'm pretty sure I saved that clip because I was pissed because I was like, this was so fucking annoying. Like,
yeah, like you should.
That I finally got to this point.
Shared of like you making like the bridge. I was like, yeah, that took me 30 seconds. I don't get
that was
like,
the
and it was a 30-second
like,
clip of you doing the thing of the solution that took you a while to get there. But it was like, yeah, I did that. And like that was exactly how long it took me. So I don't.
But you said you built like a staircase. So where like if I did that, I probably would have felt more like, oh, cool, that worked. Where like I literally just saw a big pile of wood planks and was like, oh, if there's enough here to just attach a ramp. So it was like I just have to do it and execute it. And it took me 5 minutes. And it was like I knew what I needed to do in 5 seconds, and it took me 5 minutes. So I was like, that was annoying. But if I would have spent 5 minutes building a staircase that had counterweights, I might have felt more satisfied. Like.
And
cool, I did that, but then I was like, but I don't need to do it. So
the difference is that like if I were to build the ramp, it would take me 5 seconds, whereas the staircase took me 30 seconds. Like
it took me at least 30. It takes me at least 30 seconds to line up another piece with another piece to attach it.
Oh, that gets a lot faster
every time.
Yeah, like that was the whole like language thing, whereas like it has become second nature to me.
For me, and no matter how many hours I played it, it just never gets. I always make a piece that's like even that ramp. It was like so long. It wouldn't let me raise it as much as I wanted to raise it because the bottom was hitting the ground. It was just like it was so annoying. Like, I was just like, I'm done. I was like, this is literally the most basic thing you can do in this game, and it's making me so mad. I was like, I just can't play anymore of this game. And I did play a little more after that, but, like, that session was the end of it for sure. I was like, I'm done.
I know. And specifically for, like, that problem, it's like, well, the object that you select is where the object that you rotate from, and so then you get to learn that where it's like then in the like the directions that you rotate them in are relative.
Is at. Yeah.
And even when you're building, then you're like, okay, where's the center of gravity of this object, and like what is the like these are incredibly complex.
It's
like,
very
thoughts.
Physicsy. Like I saw somebody, like I saw another clip that I was like, this is why. I was like, it like almost made me feel like I'm glad I didn't play any more of this game, because somebody built like some cart and they put some Zonai fans on the back. And as soon as they triggered the Zonai fans, the cart just like blew into smithereens, like just shattered. And they're like, oh, you didn't put the wheels on an axle. Oh, I was just like, fuck this game. I don't want to be thinking about axles and pivot points.
That's how it works, though.
And it's like, I get that's how it works, but I get that's how it works. But like, again, that's just like, that's an element that I just don't want to engage with in any video game, whether it's, even if it were 2D, I'd probably have a tough time getting, like, I know I mentioned like some 2D physics games I can kind of get into, but when it's like really, I was even playing this game called Hellgineers. It's a Pico 8 like bridge building game. And even that, I was like, once it got to like, I got to build like support trusses and this and that, I was like, okay, this was fun at first, but like at this point, I have to like know how to build a fucking bridge for real. And it's like at that point, I might as well learn how to build a bridge than play this video game. You know what I mean?
Hey, you were just talking about World of Goo.
That's true, yeah. But that's like a little more abstracted enough, even though obviously Hellgineers is too. You're like building these like drawbridges over these lava pits. But like something about it, I was like, man, you really have to like kind of know your physics and engineering to like make this work.
It's definitely baked into it. Yeah.
And Tears of the Kingdom has that too, even though it's obviously a little more like, there's crazier stuff going on. Like I never even got to a point where I can steer my machines, those like little levers that you can attach to them or whatever.
God. Yeah, there's so many fun.
I've seen some
things.
cool stuff. Like I've definitely seen some cool stuff, but at the same time, like when people share stuff that even that I think is cool, I'm like, but that's not. It's cool to watch a clip, but I don't want to play it. You know, it's like it's enough. Like everything that that Commodore Fez was sharing in the Discord. Like every time he was like, oh holy shit, I was like, fuck this game. Like every single clip he showed, I was like, that makes me hate the game even more. That one where like they like attach that like ice platform to like that spear, and we're just like stabbing it into the water and making more ice platforms. Like this game is so stupid. But it just for
why
me,
isn't this Zelda more serious? Why does this Zelda game have fun?
It's not even that, because I love silliness in games sometimes, but it wasn't hitting the right note for me with this one. But
just serious.
I've said my piece.
No, you haven't. You're gonna bring it up. You're gonna bring it up unprompted.
I might. It'll be the new Super Rush, the new Mario Golf Super Rush.
Yeah.
I'll say I was more disappointed in Super Rush because I truly thought that was going to be like my lifelong like go-to Switch game where like this was like, even though I was anticipating it after thinking it wasn't going to be for me, I started anticipating it and getting hyped. Like it still was like a kind of a one-time thing that I was hoping like, okay, I'll have this one experience and it'll be done. Mario Golf, I was like expecting like this is going to be like my go-to game.
So Randall, you haven't even gone to the depths yet.
No.
Jesus.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I can't believe you've played 15 hours without the paraglider.
I can't.
Believe no map unlocking.
I don't need
crazy.
No
That's kind of awesome.
I got my eyes.
Yeah. That's kind of sweet
that I can teleport between.
Randall, you have so much in front of you.
I know.
For real.
If you think that you're even halfway enjoying this game,
you
have no idea. You have no fucking clue, man.
Yeah, because for me, like thinking about what you were saying too, John, like for me, like Breath of the Wild was all about like trying to cheese my stamina to get to the highest like peak of any mountain. Like, oh, here's like a slant of that mountain that like I can recover stamina at. And then just paraglide around. That was kind of the whole game for me, like realistically. Yeah. And I think this game just gives me too many options where like if I do that, I can still do that, but I feel like I'm not engaging with so much of the game. And sure, you can do that, but I'm just like, there's part of my brain that keeps nagging at me. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're not even supposed to be doing, but like not supposed to be doing, but like, just like, hey, there's all these cool things, these tools at your disposal to get around faster. Like, why are you walking? Why are you?
Because
like,
it's fun.
Because
like nagging
it's fun. Oh, but that's really what I've been doing most of the time now. Is that like I'll go to someplace one way, and then I'll go through it another way, and then I'll go through it another way. So like. You have to want to be doing the same thing over and over again. Like if it is not in your brain to like,
and with a map
just
that
like
big, I'm just like I want to get
for fun. I've been in the same areas so many times doing the same thing, but like slightly differently, and like because that's what I like doing in games. Like
and I'm the opposite. I'm like I want to keep like making progress essentially, you know.
Yeah.
So not with every game, but it just didn't scratch the same itch as Breath of the Wild. Not that I wanted to scratch the same exact itch, but it was different enough for me where I was like, I still got enough meat on that Breath of the Wild bone. I'll just go back to that since I know it's more my speed.
And I think that
is progress.
Both a strength. Yeah, I just think it's a strength. I think that's just
I agree.
a good thing that like if you want a like more stripped down version of this game, there's Breath of the Wild. If Breath of the Wild left you wanting, there's Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, like, and at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy to see Nintendo like not that they've never done it before, but kind of do a sequel like proper and not kind of treat you like you've never played a video game before. It is kind of cool to see them take a different approach with this game. Like, hey, there's obviously people are going to know what the hell is going on. And if they don't, maybe they'll have to buy Breath of the Wild. Like, I can't imagine playing this game without having that language built in.
I will say, like, I think overall I like the story fine in Tears of the Kingdom, but in very specific points, I'm like, this sucks. Like this
just generic. The bits I saw, obviously not much, but
like I think that the story is the weakest part. I don't think it's bad.
It's not a driving force.
Yeah,
at least in my experience so far.
Which is
the cutscenes are well done and engaging, but it's just kind of once they're done,
fine.
They're just kind of like, okay,
it is perfectly serviceable.
But
I don't think it's a detriment to the experience, but I think it's the weakest part by far. And like it's a bummer because actually the Hyrule Warriors story, like I feel like
I remember you talking about that. Yeah,
I feel like enough time has gone by, and I don't know if this is going to make it into a save it to the cast, but massive spoilers for Hyrule Warriors. And do you guys care if I spoil the story?
Not on
of
my
Hyrule's
end. No.
It's an alternate universe. Like you prevent the deaths of all of the original Guardians.
Oh, that's fun.
Like they all survive.
Okay,
instead of
there's
dying,
a lot of story on that bone right there.
And that is the halfway point. And so then like all of the future heroes then go back in time and are with you with the prior ancestral heroes at the same time.
Why not?
That's pretty badass.
It rules.
Yeah,
but
like
it was such a moment that I was like, when you're playing that game and you're expecting it from playing Breath of the Wild, it's like, oh man, I'm getting to the point where all of the heroes die, and then you just blow past that point in the story. It's a real Inglourious Bastards where it's like, oh, I guess you just fucking killed Hitler. Okay.
Yeah, that was easy.
Turns out he's just a guy. Yeah.
So it was wild playing Hyrule Warriors and being like, all right, game, you've got my attention.
What a game that you probably weren't expecting to get much story out of at all. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then
just
like
hack
going
and slash
this,
arcade action. Yeah.
Like Tears of the Kingdom was just kind of like straightforward. And it was like, all right.
Yeah, it reeks of genericness for sure. The little bit that I saw, even though I was intrigued by it, but like it definitely was like, okay, I've seen this. This kind of seems like typical Zelda fare, you know?
Which is a bummer because like, I don't know. I know that they probably couldn't like being a like direct sequel, like they had to do something. Like they couldn't just do like a whole brand new like mythos, which is the strength of every other Zelda game, is that they kind of have to create a whole brand new universe of like what is reality, and which is also a thing that I fucking we gotta stop talking about this.
Wait for the Switch Pro and the next Zelda sequel for that one.
Yeah, we'll see. They said this is the new direction for Zeldas in the future, more open-ended, baby. So
I mean, that was the original direction.
Yeah, and that's what they did with Breath of the Wild too. So it's like I'm not like afraid of it yet. Like we'll see, but I definitely will be like on the lookout. Like, okay, if the next Zelda isn't looking like it's speaking to me, I'm just gonna be, it's just not for me. No big deal. There's a million other games to play. So
yeah.
God, we didn't even get into the Ouroboros of like Breath of the Wild influencing Elden Ring, which then influenced Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think it was Arpy in the Discord, was mentioning like, I'd love to see the Idle Thumbs guys come around, because they always used to talk about this game Far Cry 2, and they were like about how it was all systems driven, and then when Breath of the Wild came out, they were like, this is like Far Cry 2 except Nintendo made it, you know. And RP was like, I'd love to see them do like a comeback episode and like talk about how far it's come since then, you know.
Yeah.
And I totally agree.
Damn.
But all right, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Yep. Read my mind.
Drinking a juicy IPA that's in tribute to the game Joust, which, you know, normally I don't give a shit about like the branding of it all, but I'm like, oh, that's cute, and I like the brewery, so you know.
Oh, like it actually is that?
Yeah, it's like
the name of it or something.
No, it's like,
oh, that's sweet.
That's cool. Cute.
That's a cool can.
That is a
really
cool can.
Label.
Yeah, it is. And I like the brewery, so I'm like, yeah, sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Give me a juicy IPA.